they're doing a show next door, so we got to be kind of quiet. But to me, the real action took place right here. This is the exact spot where the gunfight at the OK Corral took place 140 years ago today at this exact time. Yes, we're standing here at 2:30 when the gunfight happened. And why is this important to me? I don't know. I'm crazy, I guess. I just love it here. I've been here every year, including the the centennial of the fight, 125th, and all the years in between. And here we are at the 140. Thank you, folks. It's so glad to be here. The year's 1957. My parents were going to go out on a date to the American Legion in Kingman, Arizona, and they would send me up to my grandmother's house, and I liked to go to my grandmother's house because she was from an old ranching family down in the Llanos Valley, which is in the boot heel of New Mexico, about 100 miles straight east of here. And she would tell about how we were related to outlaws, and she claimed that we were related to Bigfoot Wallace and Blackjack Ketchum, and so this drove my mother nuts because we'd be with company. I'd go, "We're related to outlaws," and my mother would be going, you know, what she heard was Charlie Manson, Jack the Ripper, you know. But I love my grandmother, and she would tell. I'd go up there, and she'd tell stories about how outlaws would come in the middle of the night, and they would sometimes leave a better horse than the one they took, and I just thought that was so cool. And so one night, Thursday night, if I remember correctly, in 1957, my parents dropped me off at my grandmother's, and I had a conflict because she wanted to talk to me, but my favorite TV show was coming on at 7 o'clock, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. And I said, "Grandma, do you mind if I turn the TV on?" And she said, "Sure, go ahead." I could tell she was a little disappointed. And I ran over to the TV and I turned it on just in time to hear this song. And if you're old enough, you're exempted from that. If you're old enough, so I want you to sing it with me for the kids, okay? Wyatt Earp, Wyatt Earp, brave, courageous, and bold. Long live his fame, and long live his glory, and long may his story be told. There's the old people right there. Civil War to the kids, but anyway. So I loved Wyatt Earp because in my mind, and according to the TV show, he cleaned up every cow town in the West. He drank milk, he didn't date anybody, you know. I thought, this guy's my guy, you know. But right in the middle of the song, I saw my grandmother's finger come out from the chair, and she pointed at the TV, and she said, and I quote, "Wyatt Earp was the biggest jerk who ever walked the West." And so I looked at the TV, right, which never lies. I looked at my grandmother. I'm going, wow, somebody's not telling the truth here, okay? And so that was the spark. Because I thought, well, how can they tell a story on TV? I thought it was true. And so I really became fascinated with the whole Old West story, but particularly the gunfight at the OK Corral. Now, in the 60s, of course, I forgot all of that because of the Beatles, and I had an Austin Healey, and I knew how to do the pony. But in 1965, I came down to the U of A to go to art school, and beckoning, you know, not that far away, was the town of Tombstone. And so after seeing Appointment with Destiny, which was a David Wolper documentary on the OK Corral fight, I had to come down here. And I came down here, and that was in '74, and that was my first visit. Now, I've been several times. Every chance I got, I came down here. I wanted to study it, and I became. I had the goal that I was going to put out a graphic novel of the gunfight at the OK Corral on the centennial, 1881, 1981. Wouldn't that be so groovy? Well, I missed it by 10 years, but anyway. So I was just so excited about doing that. So in the interim, I got married in 1979, and as some married people do still. My wife was 8.5 months pregnant when we were at Rio Rico, and I said, I want to take you over to Tombstone. So we drove over here like a bat out of hell in a borrowed car. And we came in here in the front and went in the back. And I'm just over there looking at where those statues are and just like, this is where it happened, man. This is where it happened. And I look over, and my wife has waddled over next to Fly's boarding house, and she's sobbing. And we hadn't been married that long, and I go, honey, are you okay? And she says to me, crying, how many times have you been here? I said, I don't know, 6 maybe? Wouldn't once have been enough? Apparently not. The date was coming along, and now I lived in Phoenix, and then I had 2 kids, and the date was October 26, 1981, okay? And I told Kathy, I said, I know you don't want to go, but I have to be there in the corral at the Centennial. I don't know what's calling me, but I just have to be there. And so I got in the car, I drove to Tucson, I picked up my good friend John Weinkoff. We drove down here, we parked off across the street, and we went in the corral. And that is so impactful to me at that 2:30 showing, because 2:30 is when we think it happened. And Ben Trawick played Wyatt Earp. They did the thing twice. They had some people from California. And I believe there's a Doc Holliday that was at the Centennial in this room. Gary Lowe, are you here? Stand up. There's the guy right there. Can you believe it, Gary? 40 years. It's just crazy. So here's what's so weird about it. I met so many people that you think, oh yeah, just a bunch of nutballs. That's what my wife thinks, you know. You went down there, just a bunch of crazy coots that just talk about the old West and can't think, yeah, is there anything wrong with that? And but I met, Bob McCubbin was in that crowd, okay. Phil Spangenberger did a show, okay. Richard Ignarski was there looking so fine. I took a couple of photos of a reference for him. He became Tom McLaury in my renderings when I was there. He was my model for that. And of course, Harold Love was the MC, and he was going to get me a job as doing cartoons for the Tombstone Epitaph. Well, a strange thing happened. We went down to call the United Press in New York to do the show. And we got done, and I'm just this kid, you know, there. And the editor turns to me after he hangs up and takes a shot of bourbon. He says, man, I'm glad this is over. And now we can get back to the real history of what happened in Tombstone. And I never did another thing for him. Because that's what brought me to the dance. How dare you diss the one thing that I love so much, okay? Now, fast forward, in 1999, Bob McCubbin came over for a book signing because I just came out with the Illustrated Life and Times of Wyatt Earp in 1993 and the Illustrated Life and Times of Doc Holliday in 1994. And so in 1999, there was a bookstore on that corner, if you remember over there, 4th and Allen. And after the bookstore, we went to the OK Cafe. All right, is it still open?
Yep.
Is it? Oh, I love it.
Just not today.
God bless them. God bless them, okay? And we were there, and a Bob McCubbin, who worked at El Paso Gas and has the largest photo collection of outlaws and lawmen in the world, okay? You go to Bob McCubbin's house. First time I went there, okay? Somebody told me that, John Gilcrease told me, the guy who had a lot of Wyatt Earp stuff. He said, if you go through El Paso, you got to see Bob McCubbin. So I go to his house, knock on the door. Hey, I'm Bob Bell from Arizona. I'm doing a research on Billy the Kid. And we go inside, and we're sitting there, and I said, hey, you know, they're, in the Billy the Kid story, Morton and Baker are captured by the Kid's posse, the regulators, and they're taken to Roswell. And one of the guys, Morton or Baker, writes a note to his sister and says, I don't know if we're going to make it alive to Lincoln, and sorry for my handwriting. I'm writing, my hands are tied. And I say to Bob, I have my notes, you know, I go, does anybody know where that note ended up? And I swear, he leaps out and he goes, he pulls it up. And it's the actual note itself. And I'm going, I'm shaking, I'm going, really? Can I take it? And he goes, yeah, and I took a photo of it. And so then I said, I'm doing a book on Billy the Kid, and everybody wants the same photo of Jimmy Dolan. Are there any other photos? It's the Dolan photo album, okay? And he opens it up, and there's Jimmy Dolan as a drummer boy. And I'm going, oh my goodness. The final thing, which is off purpose to this, but is germane to what I'm saying, is he showed me one of his books, and this was a section on signed books, and it's Geronimo's biography, signed by Geronimo. And I know, it's just so hard to believe. So that's the Bob McCubbin that was sitting out here at the Centennial, and he had the same love and reason to come here. No, but there was no ads. We just had to be here on that date, okay? So now Bob and I are sitting at the OK Cafe, and he's retiring from El Paso Gas, and he has a pension of $14,000 a month. And he says, I need to burn some of this money. Let's buy a Mexican food restaurant in El Paso. And I said, Bob, my relatives, my in-laws own a restaurant. We don't want to get in that business. That's number one. Number two is, I know how we can burn through a lot more money than buying a restaurant. Let's buy True West magazine. Now, this is a magazine I read as a kid. When I was growing up in Kingman and I was 9 years old, my mother would go in to get prescriptions filled, and I would run to the front of the store and buy the latest of True West magazine because it told the true stories of the Wild West. I just loved it, just absolutely loved it. And so, long story short, Bob McCubbin had an accountant in El Paso, and I had an accountant in Phoenix, Arizona, look at the books, and they said, both of them came to the same conclusion. They have nothing to sell you. You would be better starting your own magazine with a new name. And I looked at Bob, he looked at me, and we both said, let's fly to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and pay way too much for a dying magazine to save the name. That's what we did. That is not exactly what we said. Thank you. So, that's a long-winded way and a long way around, but to say, think about that, all the people that were there that day. Richard Narski has one of the finest museums, the Gunfighter Museum, that's a block and a half here, and you have to go there if you haven't seen it, the Gunfighter Museum. It is absolutely wonderful. Love Richard, okay? And Phil Spangenberger, he's the first guy I called when I said we need a gun editor in True West Magazine. We need to elevate our gun game for the people who love SAS and all the gun-related things. Phil Spangenberger's our guy, and he has been that for the last 20 years. In fact, here's a secret that no one else knows yet. Phil Spangenberger is going to be named the 2021 Westerner of the Year in January. Really, really well-deserving. So in '93, I thought I'm going to do the most thorough examination of the gunfight that's ever been done. And I got Jeff Morey, who's a wonderful, he probably knows more about Wyatt Earp and this story than anyone I know living. And him and I came down here, we walked it, we measured it, and as a matter of fact, at the 1981 fight, I got up on the roof. Remember for the second enactment, the TV camera on the roof, and I went up there with 8mm film. So I've got 8mm film of you, which you'll have to watch, okay? But I was able to, through Jeff's scholarship and to take all of the different versions from the Spires hearing, we got everyone's movement down. He fired this many times, he was shot here, this went there, here's Addie Bordelin, here's where this was, here's where Freeman came from, and the whole thing. And so I published that, and I still think it's out in the store out here, and if you want a real concise blow-by-blow of what actually happened that day, I don't think you could do better than what Jeff Morey and I put together. But here's the irony to that. About a month ago, we were talking about Kevin Jarr and Tombstone, which Jeff had a lot to do with. And Jeff Morey says to me, and oh, by the way, I think our placement of where the fighters were is off. I think they never got off the sidewalk. And I thought, well, there goes 20 years of, you know what I mean? So it never ends. And one of the big takeaways that I got from coming here every year and studying this is, are you ready? Nothing changes more than the past. What we believed 10 years ago, what we believed 20 years ago, not even true anymore, okay? There was when I was starting out in my grandmother's house, and the reason that my grandmother hated the Earps is because she was from a ranching family just beyond Sulphur Springs. She was there in 1900. She knew people who participated, and none of them liked the Earps. Why? Because the Earps were interlopers, carpetbaggers. They were from Iowa, and they were Republicans. That was it. That was a big deal then. But anyway, so here I am trying to do the best story that I can about this story. And it's just been absolutely a thrill because, and once I realized, you know what, this is the best version I can do at this time with what the information I had. And you go back and look. Now, for example, in the Billy the Kid story, does anybody remember The Left-Handed Gun with Paul Newman? And yeah, and the reason that movie was called The Left-Handed Gun was because there was an idea in the culture in the 1950s that being left-handed, which I am, made you prone to being a juvenile delinquent. Well, that's true, but anyway, so they come up with this movie, The Left-Handed Gun. He's a bad dude, he's left-handed, and that's why he's bad, And then some woman, I'm guessing it was a woman, looked at the only known photo of Billy the Kid and said, I think the buttons are on the wrong side of that vest. And all of a sudden, oh, it's flopped. That means his gun is on his right hip. So scratch the left-handed gun and all of the people who ascribed juvenile tendencies to a youth they never knew. That's what I mean when I say nothing changes more than the past. Now what's funny is well, it's not going to be funny to me, I won't be here, but at the 200, actually at the 150, I might make the 150, and I'd love to see you here and we'll compare notes. And you can come up to me and say, Bob, page 38, page 52, page 105, that is some real deep crap. And it's just part of the deal. Something else that's weird is that I thought when I was doing these books that all the old school historians would embrace me and I would be part of the fraternity that Glenn Boyer and John Gilcrease and all these old Dan Thrapp and all these other people that I admired and helped me gain the book as much credibility as I thought it had. And when the book came out, they were scathing. I think John Gilcrease said, there's a mistake on every page. Oh, man, does that hurt. So, and welcome to the club, okay? That's the other thing is you think, I'm going to get, those guys must just have fun all day long, That must be just a hoot and a half as a job. It is, but then there's that, okay? I want to tell you one more story about this town and being here with historians. And that is in May of 1993, me and the Renegades met. The Renegades was a group of historians that included Bob McCubbin, John Bosnecker, let's see, who else? Leon Metz was in that group, Alan Barra, Casey T. Fertiller. These are the big dogs in the Wyatt Earp Scholarship. And we were here, and we went to the Crystal Palace, and our IQs were soon shooting through the roof. We were getting so damn smart. And Jeff Morey says to me over the second drink, hey, I've got Kevin Jarre's script. I'd heard this rumor they were going to film not one, but 2 Wyatt Earp movies that summer, in the summer of '93. And so he says, I have the script with me. And I said, I want to read it. I want to read it. And he said, I have to leave in the morning early. If you're going to read it, you've got to read it now, tonight. And I thought, I don't want to read it. I'm too smart right now. And so we were staying at the Tombstone boarding house. And we got back there, and I was bugged, and I got ready for bed, and I opened it up. Because I had the conceit, as many of you probably seated here, I can tell by the look on your face, I could write the best Wyatt Earp script. I just thought that, of course I did. I thought I knew him better than anybody. And so I started to read the Kevin Jarre script, and the first page stunned me, the second page, third page. By the time I got to the end, I said out loud, I think, if they film this, this will be the best Wyatt Earp movie ever done. The reason is because it was shades of gray. The Cowboys had a place, they had their story, and it was equal to the Earp story, and it was really handled well. And so I thought, boy, I got this is going to be a really great movie. And so then Jeff called me in June and he said, do you want to come down and visit the set where they're filming Tombstone? And I said, yes, I want to see it, you know. And so I had a radio show in Scottsdale, and I got off at 9 o'clock. I did the morning show, morning drive. And when I got off at 9, I got in the car and I brought my daughter with me. She was 13. Wonderful age to take a young daughter anywhere, 13. Anyway, so, no. And anyway, why do we have to go there? Okay, well, you know, one of those. And so we go down, we get out to Tucson, we picked up Jeff, we came to Elgin and the Baba Kamori where they were filming a scene, and all these wires were going up the canyon, you know, and there were trailers there, and there were guns with shotguns on the pommel and stuff, and I'm just wide-eyed, you know, I got a camera on my neck. And we're going up in there, and I look and I say, God, that's Val Kilmer. There's Kurt Russell. And so I'm looking at everything, and we get up there, and the AD comes by. There's people running everywhere. The AD comes by, and he goes, no camera. I go, okay, fine, I won't shoot him. But they didn't take it away from me. So we get up in there, and they're filming the scene where the cowboys come over a ridge, and they come into a cowboy camp, and Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday confront the cowboys, and they get into a fight, and Wyatt Earp gets off of his horse and starts fighting with one of the cowboys. That was the scene, and if you've ever been on a movie set, it takes them 3 hours to do that. This side, that side, let's do it here, let's do it there. And so Jeff and I went over and sat on a hill to watch the action, and what I noticed was, when Wyatt Earp got off to fight the cowboy, Kevin Jarre, the director who wrote this script, this brilliant script, he would come over and he would go, I couldn't hear them, but this is the way it looked. You know, and I went, oh, that's genius, because Earp was a pugilist. He was and then if you boxed in the 1800s, it was the Queensberry rules, and so you'd be doing this. Now that looks a little, you know, over the top, but I just thought, oh, if they can pull this off. And so then Kurt Russell would come in and pow, you know, the Hollywood version. No. They came in, they did that 2 or 3 times. They took a break, and Kevin Jarre came over and sat next to Jeff, right next to him. And I'm sitting there, every nerve ending in my head's burning, and I go, I just took the photo, okay? 2 days later, he's fired. They changed the script. They started cutting the Cowboys roles. I want to do an issue next April in True West Magazine on what got lost when they fired Kevin Jarre. And I want to go over the scenes. Michael Bean has already submitted his ideas on what he thought was lost in that transition. And I think if I can do anything, if I can still accomplish anything as an old man, I would like to have someone, a kid, take that original script and film it. Because that script is the godfather of Westerns. It shows this whole story that we all love here, the way it really happened. So Kevin's gone. I'm trying to track down people who knew him. I'm talking to the producer, and they're talking about what he did wrong. He had this idea that he could shoot this like John Ford. So Kevin Jarre was trying to do a John Ford. He was saying these new Westerns with all the cuts and everything like that, that's BS. I'm going to go back to the master, John Ford, and I'm going to shoot it like an old John Ford. And everybody on the set who was a movie person went, this guy can't direct. This was on the first day. And so they spent 2 weeks, and the scene that I saw, he got fired the next day. And so I was not only witnessing a historical moment where the guy who wrote this was, and he probably got fired over the scene I saw because, you know, Kurt didn't want to do that, and I've never talked to him about it, but you can imagine how that went. So that, to me, is how crazy life is.
It was filmed here?
Yeah, and they wanted to film it in town here, but it would cost $2 million to renovate it, okay? Now, I visited I'm probably the only guy alive that visited both sets. I went to the Kevin Costner Wyatt Earp set that was filmed outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they spent $1.5 million renovating that ranch to look like Dodge City. And I said, well, what did you do for Tombstone? And they said, we just moved over a street. I'm like, that's so Hollywood, you know. Yeah, we don't just move over, okay? So, okay, we got somebody here that needs to know the location. So, if you go out here and drive down there and go to Fairbank, hang a left and go to Fairbank, which is really historic in and of itself because there was a bank robbery there with Jeff Milton. Good man with a gun. Who's that? Who said that? Yeah, Jeff Milton is the one. Okay, you want to stop at Fairbanks, okay? Then keep going. You go up the road. You go past on the right is the Whetstones where Wyatt Earp allegedly shot Curly Bill. Shoot up there, look at that, okay? There's Fort Huachuca on the left, and you go up, you go around the curve, and you're going towards Sonoyta. And on the left is a little bird called Elgin, and down a side canyon is where they were filming Tombstone. They filmed all over. They filmed in Sabino Canyon and in Tucson. Help me. Where else did they film? Mescal. We got to go to Mescal. Mescal. They filmed a lot in Mescal. Patagonia. They filmed. Yeah, that's true. In fact, the producer I'm talking about, he moved to Patagonia. He loved it so much. The bings and the bangs of how those guys ended up down there in this lot for 30 seconds is the craziest story. You know, people think that you see the movies and it's tumbleweeds blown, 4 men come out, nobody knows who they are, they're walking, they're ignoring them. No, this was a schoolyard fight. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, people were running up and down this street right here going, the Earps, so as soon as the Earps come, there's going to be a big fight. And then there was 250 people at Hafford's Corner when Doc Holliday's standing in the middle of the street. And people are running. Tom McClowry came down to the corner here at Fremont and looked up, and they're all, you know, like a schoolyard. You know, yeah, we're getting like that. And then I love this. So one of the eyewitnesses said, did you notice that the cowboys were armed? And he said, yeah, I went in there and I saw 4 farmers with guns. I just love that quote. You know, it was 4 farmers, and I just love that. And then people were running back and forth. They're coming down. In fact, one guy was supposed to, Coleman, I think it is, he was supposed to come down and warn them that they were coming. Now, this is what makes the walk down so incredibly courageous. And that is, when they started walking, 4 of them, 2 by 2, up 4th here, they didn't know, they had heard reports that there were 50 cowboys down here. And there probably were north of 20. And they're all, you know, if they come down here, I'm going to win. Of course, when they came down there, well, yeah, I got to go. You know, and in fact, even Billy Claiborne left, otherwise it would have been 5-4. Okay? But I love that schoolyard thing, and that is the essence of that, why we're here today. Is because takeaway number 2 is courage never goes out of style. I don't care how much you know about Wyatt Earp. I know more than I want to know. He was a pimp, okay? He was a good guy, okay, in many, many ways, all right? But what those guys did that day on that walk is why we're here. And my good friend Tom Ross, the artist, he put it the best, and it's in that 140th anniversary issue that you should all have. We brought extras for you. He said it best, and that is, Wyatt Earp matters for what he meant, not for what he was. And so, no matter what you hear about the Tarnished Star, and he didn't, and they were unarmed, and all of that stuff, it doesn't matter. When he went down that street, when those 4 guys walked down the middle of Fremont Street, I wouldn't recommend it tonight, but when you're going down it, you really get the vibe of what really happened. Before we go, thank you. I think Hetty has something that's going to be presented. It's kind of a surprise to me.
And I want to thank this man here for helping those legends come to life and put faces to them. To me, I deem it a pleasure and an honor to present a Legends of Tombstone Award to Bob Boze Bell, chronicler of the Old West.
Thank you. Look at that.